Alright, hello and welcome to a new series that I'm starting where I roll a wheel and whatever path I get, I have to explain every upgrade on that path. Let's go. And bottom path heli. This is actually going to be a fun one. Let's do it. So, quick disclaimer. This is mostly intended for chimps, but all of the tips I'm going to say here are pretty universal and it doesn't really matter what difficulty you're on. Anyways, let's actually get started. So first, we'll be covering the MOAB shove. I could go over the tier 1 and tier 2 of this path, but they're just cross paths that you get with any other path, and they're not really specific to this path. So, let's just get started with the tier 3. The MOAB shove is a fairly good tower that can be used as some primary MOAB stalling in the mid-game, or it can be used to stall out a single BFB for an incredibly long time if you really need to get your abilities back. It does have a few other uses though, and I will not be going over those right now because those involve significant amounts of micro, and I'm guessing you guys don't want micro because this is a guide channel. MOAB shove is basically just a significantly cheaper version of main MOAB that is also significantly worse at the mid-game where you're probably going to be using it most often. So if your defense is doing quite fine, but you just need to save a few $1,000s, going a MOAB shove over an outbuffed main MOAB is sometimes a good option. Also, for cross-pathing, 0-1-3 is usually the best, but if you need quad darts or pursuit for the early game, you can do that. Or if you're building into Comanche defense and Comanche commander later, go for the top path as well. And most times, if you're using it for MOAB mid-game stuff, lock in place is the best. When I find myself most often using MOAB shove, however, is when I need to stall out a BFB in the late game for an incredibly long amount of time. Like, if I need to get lots of abilities back for the start of the next round, usually this will happen on rounds 98 to 99, or that's mostly it, but you can find other reasons. But yeah, overall, MOAB shove is a pretty good upgrade that you might need in certain cases, but sometimes just isn't worth getting. Now, let's move on to the tier 4, Comanche defense. Comanche defense is a fairly good mid-game on single-lane maps with strategies that you can afford your main DPS tier 5 before round 80, because it really falls off after round 80 and just isn't that good afterwards. It tends to do very good in situations where it doesn't have to be your main Bloon DPS, because if it has to be your entire round 63 solo, it just can't do that, or your entire 76 solo, or your 78 solo, it just can't do that. It doesn't do that good Bloon DPS. So you're going to need something else to help, which is where the build-up of your tier 5 that you're getting later is going to help. Like, if you're getting a tier 5 where the tier 4 does very good Bloon damage, like a Glue Strike if you're building into a Glue Storm later, or something like a Jungle's Bounty if you're building into a Spirit of the Forest, or a Ring of Fire if you're building into an Inferno Ring, or get Ring of Fire anyway because it's an incredibly funny tower and you should definitely use it. Anyways, that was my inner member of the Index Discord server taking over for a second. Anyways, let's continue. Comanche defense tends to fall off pretty hard after round 80 because it just doesn't do enough damage to deal with the super ceramics which come after round 80. So after round 80 it doesn't do that much, but before round 80 it's very good on single lane maps if it doesn't have to be your main blue TPS. So it can be good sometimes, but usually there are significantly better options. Now, let's move on to the tier 5, the Comanche Commander. Comanche Commander is a weird one because sometimes it's pretty good, but sometimes it is absolutely garbage and you shouldn't buy it. So, its main strengths are that Comanche defense builds into it very well, and that it is usually a pretty good option on single lane maps, but only single lane maps. The best heroes to use it with are by far Geraldo and maybe Etienne if you're on some very specific circumstances, but Geraldo is usually the way to go. And something very important that I have to mention is that Glue Storm is some of the best support you can get for Comanche Commander because Comanche Commander does need a little bit of extra damage, which Glue Storm provides. It needs D-Lead, which Glue Storm also provides, and it needs significant ceramic control, which Glue Storm also provides. So what I'm saying is, use Glue Storm with Comanche Commander, and it's also perfect because Glue Strike covers Comanche defense's main weakness, so you can build into it much easier. And even if you have a glue storm, Comanche Commander still needs a good bit of extra support. And one of my favorite options to go with it is a cripple MOAB, because it can provide good ZOMG damage, which Comanche Commander sometimes lacks, and it can be a very good solution to help on round 100, which is also another place where Comanche Commander really lacks. So, to sum it up with Comanche Commander, it's very good on single lane maps, but sometimes there can be better options. You basically need Glue Storm for it to actually be good, and it still needs significant support afterwards. It also has a massive Super Ceramic weakness, which is solved if you are getting Glue Storm, but Glue Storm doesn't have 100% uptime, so you might still need a bit of additional ceramic support. And it also needs a form of D-Lead, like a Glue Storm, or an MIB if you're not getting Glue Storm, which why would you not be? It's also best used with Geraldo, and I definitely already mentioned this, but single lane maps. Only use it on single lane maps. If you're trying to use it on multi-lane maps, you're going to struggle, so don't use it on multi-lane maps. Anyways, that was the entire bottom path heli explained for chimps, but you can apply the tips to most difficulties as well. I hope this video helped you out in some way. Have a nice rest of your day. Goodbye. I'll definitely continue this series. It's pretty fun. This is also probably a bad video because I kinda rushed it out and didn't have enough time to do more things in detail. So, I'll work on that for the next few. Hopefully I get something good.